Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network. This recording was made just a few days before the unfortunate announcement that Calvin Parker wouldn't be able to visit the UK for his planned appearance at the Outer Limits magazine conference. We wish Calvin the best, and obviously health comes first, and hopefully one day in the future he will be able to visit the UK, but unfortunately something's happened and this time he can't make it. So this is the show recorded just before that unfortunate announcement. Thank you.
Hello, this is Malcolm Robinson and you're listening to the Paranormal UK radio network, the UK's biggest paranormal network, and this is Paranormal Dimensions with David Young.
Hello, welcome to the show. Thank you for that intro, Malcolm. Right, I've got a few call-outs for one or two people today. Philip Kinsella of Bedfordshire, and his brother, Ronald Kinsella, Bedfordshire, UK, they're both twins, and Mr. Terry Ray of Pennsylvania, Indiana, USA. He will be a future guest on the show in, well, probably a few shows' time. Now, today's guest is I've got another amazing guest here, Mr. Calvin Parker. He had an amazing UFO encounter in October 1973. Which I believed involved aliens as well, and it was the Pascagoula, Mississippi incident. But I shall waste no more time. I'm going to introduce Mr. Calvin Parker. Hello, Calvin. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
Yes, so have
I've actually met a lot of people online from the UK and all, but I've never personally met anybody. Got to, but I hope to meet them when I come over for the conference.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting you, certainly. I mean, I've got your book, as I've mentioned already before, so I'm hoping I'll get it signed by you. It's a brilliant book. You know, it's a large format, large page book. I think they're almost A4, aren't they? The pages, and it's a very, very good book. It's well put together, and it's put together by Philip Mantle's Flying Disc Press, isn't it?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
If it hadn't been for Philip, there wouldn't be no book, because he's kind of like a woman. He got on me and kind of hounded me until I got one, and I appreciate him for it now.
Yeah, that's Philip for you, and obviously you'll be meeting him too, because I don't think you've met him yet, have you?
Exactly. I can't wait to meet Philip. We've become real good friends. We talk weekly for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of good people in the business that really care about the subject. You know, and most people are not in it for the money. You know, they're doing it because of the love of and the interest of the subject. You know, myself included.
Well, this has actually cost me money at times.
Yeah, well, and I do believe that. I mean, it does usually cost more than you get back from it. I agree with that.
Exactly. Like when I go to these conferences at the airports around here, they charge you per day to park. And if you go 7 days, that's $25 a day most of the time. And And, you know, people don't realize that. They want you to come to places and speak and all that. But then you start having to pull money out of your pocket, and it's hard to do, especially when you're on a fixed income like I am.
Absolutely, yeah, because they'll cover your travel expenses, but I don't think a lot. They maybe taxi fares and parking, etc. You might have to put your dog in a kennel or something. There's all sorts of stuff like that, isn't there?
Oh yeah, and most of the time my wife, you know, she wants to go. Well, I'm out a plane ticket for her. But this has been really good for us. In all this time since this happened, you know, I've never really opened up and talked to her about this up until the book came out.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I hadn't told any of my family. So July of last year is when the book came out, and it was an accident. It got released early. Actually, Philip wasn't going to let it release it until September, but
it escaped.
It did. It escaped from him, and then he couldn't take it back. He said, I'm going to have to just stop what I'm doing, and we'll go ahead and put this on the release this book. And I didn't ever figure it would sell for 10 copies, and I figured I had to buy that for each one of my family and friends. But this thing has exploded. I mean, it's been on the bestsellers list in Amazon for a pretty good while. Well, it hit bestsellers, then it went down to 2 or 3, and now it's exploding again. It's all the way back up.
Well, hopefully when this show goes out, you'll sell a few more from it.
Oh, I could always use a few to sell. I think Philip's going to have some books at the conference.
Yeah, I'm sure he will, yeah.
He will. And usually we try to take just a few to these conferences, because there's a lot of people that want an autographed copy of the book, and I enjoy meeting everybody. It's not like you know, the strangers anymore. I actually love to talk to people and get along.
Yeah, well, that's all part of this business, you know. It's meeting nice people. And people that share your interests, and you do make a lot of good friends. I know I've made a lot of good friends. Made a few enemies as well, but there you go.
Yeah, well, that kind of goes with the territory. You've enemies, but I've met some real great friends and people, and got out and shared my experience with a lot of people, and they shared theirs with me. And it's been quite a pleasure and honor to speak to a lot of these. Yeah. Now, there's some that I so don't believe too much, but you know, that's a personal thing. There's a lot of people that don't believe me. And everybody is entitled to their own opinion in this and has to make their own mind up. It would be a sad world if everybody agreed on everything.
Absolutely. And I think the thing is, when someone's had an experience such as you've had, you know what you saw, and you know that other people, if they have some sort of an experience, they know what they saw, and you can kind of come to an understanding that you've both seen or experienced something. It's when these people that haven't seen anything and they hear your story that, you know, they may think, oh, that's a bit far-fetched. You know, it's kind of a bit like that, isn't it? You know, it's...
Yeah. And, you know, my personal opinion, I'm going to tell the truth, regardless of whether it hurts somebody's feelings or not. But all you can do is do this and be honest about things. And if somebody don't believe it, that's fine. The ones that don't believe it will never believe it. And the ones that do believe it, you couldn't convince them that it didn't happen.
That's true, yeah.
That's just the way that it is. I mean, this is for a certain group of people, and I like to think that it's for our people. I'm going to call them our people. Is a little more smarter than the average person because they let their minds expand out.
Well, that's it. I think you've got to go into any of these subjects with an open mind. You know, if you go in with a closed mind, you're just not going to believe anything. It works the same both ways. If you go in with a closed mind that everything you hear is true, you're going to be taken for a ride a lot of the time as well, as happens sometimes. Yeah. You know. And since we started this and this news has come out, you'll be surprised at the people and a lot of these local people and all down here, reporters and all that has interviewed me.
And then after they interviewed and we spent time together, you couldn't convince them that it didn't happen. So, and that's just the way that they are. I mean, I've made some really good friends down here just because of coming out. And before I was pretty much a loner.
Yeah.
I didn't like people too good, and they didn't like me because they didn't know me. And I had a certain group of friends that I hung with, and that my community around here kind of more or less protected me all the time.
Yeah. No, I can understand that aspect, because I've been kind of a loner most of my life too. You know, obviously got friends and things, but I always used to like my own company or doing things on my own, you know. I just was never that type of like the gang culture I don't understand.
No, I wasn't either. My thing in life was working and coming home to my family.
Yeah.
I've always said you put God first, family second, and then my job come third, because you got to have a job to support your family.
Of course you have, yeah. Well, I suppose we really can. We don't sort of get on, and hope you don't mind telling your story to everyone out there, and to me again as well. You know,
I would love to.
Please do. The stage is yours, my friend.
Good deal. Well, this all happened, for those that don't know, on October 11th of 1973, when it really started. I was working in the oil field, and I had called a friend of my father's to get a job at a shipyard. And the reason I'd done that, I was working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, and I didn't have time for home or nothing. All I was doing was work. And I was engaged to get married. This was October when this happened, and I was engaged in November to get married. And I didn't want to work all the time. And back then it was nothing to do. All you could do was save money unless you eat a lot or something. But anyhow, to make a long story short, I came to the coast on October the 10th. And then the next morning, on October the 11th, my very first day at work, I went to work for the F.B. Walker and Son shipyard. Well, while working, Charles Hickson, the fellow I was renting a room from and working for, and a friend of mine, was getting ready to get off work. He said, look, it's still early in the day. Why don't we go fishing a little while before dark, and then we'll go home and unwind and eat and just kind of kick back and enjoy things a little bit. I said, well, Charlie, that'd be great, but I don't have my fishing equipment here. He said, don't worry about it. I've got plenty. You can use some of mine. Well, in the South, you just don't borrow your man's fishing equipment, period. But I did agree to go ahead and use some of his equipment. And we went to his house and picked it up. Well, we was in my car, and I had a brand new 1973 Rambler Hornet with very few miles on it. And that's going to come into play later on. So we left and we went to a place that he knows as the grain elevator. Tried him a little while there, and we didn't catch nothing. He said, well, I know one more spot, and let's go to this place and I'll try them. And that was the old Shaw Peters shipyard, and it was abandoned. And he would go out there and fish, even though there was no trespassing signs up. So we pulled up. He showed me how to get there, and we pulled up to the location. And I noticed one thing about this place. It was debris, everything. It looked like somebody would just go dump trash all over the place. Well, I was concerned about that, and I asked him, I said, why don't they keep this place up? He said, well, what happens when the water comes in, or there's a storm, it brings all this debris in, then it goes out and it leaves it base there. And that's one of the reasons they have no trespassing signs up. They didn't want nobody to get hurt. And that's the first thing that you seen was a big no trespassing sign when we got there. So we got out of the car, opened the trunk up, and got our fishing equipment, and started working our way down to the pier. And it was a pretty big project getting there because of the all the debris and the marsh grass and all that. But we finally got to the fishing, or it wasn't a fishing pier. It was a pier that they used to dock ships at. But we got to this old pier. We pulled a log up from somewhere, and we was sitting on the log. Now, this was on the Pascagoula River, and I was looking out across from the west to the east, and there was an old Coast Guard cutter there, or it might have been a NOAA ship. It was one or the other, but it was a big ship sitting there, and this thing was made out of steel. Well, me working in the shipyard now, I got to thinking, you know, we got make these things out of steel. Everything in them is steel. Now, how do these ships float being that heavy? Mm-hmm. And this is what was on my mind. Well, I noticed some blue hazy lights coming from behind me, reflecting out across the water. And I was thinking, you know, we're trespassing. And the law's here to either lock us up or run us off this property. So it's going to run a good fishing day. So I stood up, and about this time, Charlie stood up. We stood up together and turned around and looked. Well, the hazy blue lights just kind of dimmed out, and there was a bright light come on. I mean, really bright. And it was kind of blinding there for just a few minutes, for a few seconds, because we didn't have minutes then. Hmm. And we noticed something coming toward us, but you really couldn't make it out. But it was three, and I call them robots because that's the way they moved, kind of mechanically. Three robotic-looking creatures coming toward us. Now, they was gray in color, and they wasn't too tall, and their legs was together. They wasn't walking, but they was gliding across the top of this marsh grass. Mm. And it didn't take them long to get there. We didn't even have time to run. So two of them got a hold of Charles Hickson, and one of them got a hold of myself, and he grabbed me by the left arm. And immediately, when he grabbed me, I felt kind of a sting and heard a little noise. And we figured that they'd give us some kind of injection, maybe to calm us down or, you know, to get us where we wouldn't run. Hmm. But I could feel a difference when, you know, he did grab me by the arm and give us this injection, what I call. And then all of a sudden you would think that it would break our arms, but they levitated us up off the ground. Now, I must have been in front of Charlie because I didn't see him going in the ship or anything, but I know he was there. And they took us toward the door. Well, when we got to the door, I remember thinking, now where is these lights coming from? I was more or less paralyzed. I couldn't move nothing but my head. I could kind of roll it and I could roll my eyes, but that's about all I could do. And I caught myself looking for light fixtures in there to see where this bright light was coming from. And the only thing I could tell was this was illuminating out of the wall. It's just like you painted a light into the walls, a real bright light. And I couldn't see no light fixtures. So when we got to the door, this thing kind of made a left turn. Then it went down the hall a little ways and made another little right turn. And there was an examination table, what I'm going to call an examination table, in the room. And he laid me looking up at the ceiling at about a 16-degree angle or a 45-degree angle, some kind of little angle where my feet was lower than my head. And when they laid us there, I was looking up at the ceiling a little bit, and I noticed something about the size of a deck of cards come from the ceiling. And it got down and it stopped about a foot from my head. Well, this thing clicked. Then it went to my right ear, and it clicked again. It went behind my head, and it clicked. Then to my left ear. But it clicked about 4, maybe 5 times. Then it stopped in front of me, and it just shot back up into the ceiling. Well, I don't know what kind of experience Charlie had, because we really never talked about it. But I'm assuming, you know, probably the same thing happened to him. I remember him describing a big eye. But, and it might have been the eye of a camera or something. But anyhow, when this thing got through clicking and shot back up in the ceiling, this big ugly thing that brought me in, the big ugly one, robotic looking creature that brought me in, he kind of backed up out of the way. And there was a, coming from somewhere, and I call it a female. Now, I don't know if it was a female or not. Don't know really what it was. But, just for sakes, because she looked so much better than the old ugly one, I call it a female. And she come toward me, and she had facial features kind of like us, where the other one didn't. She had ears, eyes, nose, and her fingers on her hand was similar, except they was a little bit longer than, her middle fingers was a little longer than ours, or I would say. So she reached and grabbed me by the cheek. Now somebody asked me one time if there was any feelings there, and I said, absolutely not. I didn't feel nothing. I didn't smell nothing. Her skin didn't have any kind of feeling to me about it. So she reached and she grabbed me by the cheek, kind of like your grandmother would grab you. And she took her other hand and she pushed down my chin, and she run these two fingers down my throat. And this little deal that hangs down in the back of your throat, I don't know what the professional name for it is, but it's right in the back of your throat that hangs down. She went up behind that and trying to get my nasal cavity, and that's when I was choking. I couldn't breathe, and I was struggling, and I started bleeding. I was getting a nosebleed and all. Well, she automatically just kind of took her hand out until I kind of caught my breath, and telepathically, now I didn't see her mouth move or anything, but kind of telepathically, she says, we're not going to harm you. Now, it sounded just like she had said it. I've always wondered about were, and because that's plural, and where she might have got them words, or if she even spoke English, or that was even her. But it was telepathically. I just kind of knew what she was saying. And I was thinking, well, you're really doing a good job. You done run your fingers down my throat. Now, this is just what I was thinking. And you got my nose bleeding. I like to smother and all. But I was in a pretty good deal of pain. But after she said that, she just kind of backed up out of the way a little bit. And the old big ugly creature, he came over and grabbed me by the arm again. And I could feel an injection. And it was just like, you know, I didn't care anymore. Like all my problems were solved. And so he carried me back out to the river, or floated me back out to the river, about where they had picked us up, and I was facing the river, and my arms were stretched out. And then I heard Charlie, Calvin, you okay, son? Charlie was on the ground by me. And we both kind of got our wits together there for a second and turned around and looked, and then a big bright light went off. And this thing picked up off the ground a little bit and just more or less disappeared in the thin air. That's how fast it was. Well, we kind of knew the danger was over. And Charlie said, well, let's sit out here and talk for a few minutes and kind of get our wits about us. I said, well, I thought that was okay because they didn't kill us by now. They wasn't going to anyhow. So we sat down there. And he said, well, we need to tell somebody about this. I said, about what? Nothing happened. And that's just the way that I felt and what I was going to hang with. I said, what, Charlie? Nothing happened. We're going to get up in the morning. We're going to work just like we did this morning. And I don't want to tell nobody, period. Well, we're not. Well, he agreed that we wouldn't tell nobody. But what was shocking to me, the story kind of changed when we left. So we sat there a few minutes. We agreed we wasn't going to tell anybody. We got up and got to the car. Well, when I got to the car, this brand new car that I had, still making payments on it, hadn't made but 2 payments. The window was shattered on the passenger side in place. And I asked somebody why it didn't fall out until he moved it. But it's got plastic in these windows for safety. In case you have a wreck, they won't shatter and go through you. So when he opened the door, that window went ahead and fell out. Now I got in the car and I cranked on it and cranked on it. The matter of fact, I figured the battery would go dead, but it was just as strong when I finished as far as what it was when I started. Finally got it cranked, and buddy, this car was running rough. But I knew I was leaving there. I wasn't about to stay. So we backed out, and we was going to what I thought was Charlie's apartment at the time. And there was a store just before you get to his apartment on the right. And he asked me, he said, pull over. And I was thinking, well, you know, we have blue laws in the state of Mississippi back during this time period. And the stores pretty much shut down about dark, you know, a little before dark. And you couldn't buy nothing. You had to go somewhere to a major place to buy gas or anything. And I figured he was hunting a dime to call, make a phone call. And I honestly figured he was going to call his wife and tell her he was on the way in. And, but boy, was I wrong. I heard him talking to, on the phone, and he had called Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. And they told him that they did not handle anything like that, to call the local authorities, which would be the Jackson County Sheriff Department out of Pascagoula. So he came back to the car, and we really didn't have no change with us, not for the phone. And we dug around in the seat, and he got another dime, and he went back and he called the Jackson County Sheriff Department. And they told him, you stay right there. Y'all stay there. Do not move. We'll send somebody down there to talk to you. And I know what they was thinking. They was thinking that we was drinking and having a good time. And they didn't want us on the road. They didn't want us out there driving. That's what they was thinking. So it wasn't just a few minutes, and the patrol car pulled up. They got out, walked to my side, and they asked to see my driver's license or ID. So I showed them my driver's license. And I could tell he was looking in the car. He didn't never ask to search it, but he was looking in there to see if he could see anything visibly. I guess to give him a reason to search it. He said, have you been drinking? I said, no, sir. And at this time, I didn't drink. You know, I was 18, 19 years old and never really drank. And wasn't about to start then. I mean, now I have me a little cocktail every now and then. But, he said, have you been drinking? I said, no, sir. He said, well, step out of the car. He put his finger in front of my face. He said, follow that with your eyes. Well, I did that. He said, now stand on one leg. I tilt your head back, close your eyes, touch your nose, jump up and down, and count from 10 backwards. I said, man, I couldn't do that sober, much less if I'd been drinking. So anyhow, I did what he asked me to. He says, well, you seem all right with me. He said, I tell you what, follow us to the sheriff department. Well, I don't know what that other one was talking to Charlie about over there, but I didn't have time to listen in. I said, yes, sir. Because back then you did what the law asked you. Either you was going to get pepper sprayed or beat. It didn't matter which one. They just enjoyed doing either one. So we followed them to the sheriff department, and they took us into separate rooms. First of all, they give what I call a breathalyzer test or some more sobriety test, and to check to be sure that we wasn't drinking. So they separated Charlie and I. They took him to one room, took me to another room. They interrogated us. They kept asking me what had happened. I said, man, I don't know. I don't guess nothing happened. He said, well, your friend said that y'all had been abducted by a UFO. I said, oh, I don't know. If he has, he must have been asleep. I said, maybe I was asleep and he just imagined it. I don't know. But anyhow, I didn't tell them nothing right then. And Charlie was in there. He was telling them everything. They brought us together and they carried us into a room together. Now, little did we know that they had a tape recorder in this room. And actually, this worked in our favor. But it didn't work in my favor because I didn't want them to know about it. You know, this was a secret that I wanted to keep because if I was going to let Charlie look crazy, I wasn't going to look crazy with him. So, now, back then, you know, you didn't have cell phones or social media or anything. So, anyhow, they took us in there. And this is what they call the secret tape come from. They could hear the fear in both our voices. They could hear us talking. This is what really convinced the sheriff department that we was telling the truth. So just a little bit, they come in there, and I noticed he reached over there and got something out from under the table, and left and went out, and that's when they listened to the tape, and the sheriff heard the tape. Well, the sheriff come in, he said, why don't you boys go home, get y'all some rest, and I want to talk to y'all tomorrow. Well, I figured, you know, it'd just blow it off. But we got up, and we left and went home. And when I got home, I was worried about contamination all the way, because this is when this Apollo mission was going on. And and I seen it on TV, you know, they'd take these astronauts and they would quarantine them away from their families and friends and all 7 days. And this was fresh on my mind because I seen it. Now, I wasn't for sure what an alien or a UFO or nothing else was because I never heard of them. You know, I was a country boy that lived out in the country. And the biggest thing I looked at was the butt of a mule when you was plowing him. And we'd plow 100 acres sometime, just walking behind the mules. So I didn't know what a UFO or alien was, and that was the first I ever heard of one. But I did have enough sense to know that if they quarantined these astronauts, that something went on with us, and we needed to be checked because I didn't want to kill a whole lot of people off with some kind of virus. And my father worked for the Atomic Energy Commission, so that's how I knew about radiation. He worked at this, what you call Groom Lake, Area 51, where they exploded these atomic bombs underground. And he was in on them projects out there. So he wore a badge all the time, more or less even at home, to show when radiation was. I knew what radiation could do because I've heard them talk about it. But anyhow, I was concerned about everybody, so I went in. There was a gallon of bleach sitting on the tub. I took all my clothes off. I took my shoes off. I took everything I had off. I had a paper bag that was in there that they was using for a garbage can. I threw them all in that. I got in the shower and I poured this bleach from the top of my head all the way down, rubbed it in, and washed it off. Now, the reason for doing that, as a child coming up, my mother used to wash us in bleach sometime to, if we had like poison ivy or been swimming in a dirty swim hole or something. And she said that would always kill off everything. We have dog days down here where you can get some kind of staph infection or something. And she would do that just to help protect. Now, whether it done any good or not, I don't know. But in my mind, that cured it all. So I throwed all my clothes in a dumpster, come back in, call myself going to bed. But there was a long night. I'm telling you, I laid there restless.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And got up the next morning. Charlie was sitting, him and his wife was sitting in there talking. He said, well, you ready to go to work? I said, yeah. So we loaded up. We drove into work. I stopped and let Charlie get him a bite to eat at a grocery store. And we went on into work, and I didn't know how many cars was supposed to be at work, but I knew it was a lot of them up there that morning. And I had no idea, because see, this was just my second day to work. And we brassed in and went to our stations. And it wasn't just a few minutes, the office was calling us. So, I was thinking, oh, they know something. They sent somebody down and brought us into the office, and the owner of the company, he was saying, look, we cannot conduct any kind of business here today because of the news media. Our phones are ringing off the hook. We cannot get on the phone or nothing else. So, y'all gonna have to do a press release. And I was thinking, now who in the world told the press about all this? I had no idea how word got out so fast. And personally, I wasn't going to tell nobody nothing. He said, I have an attorney, and y'all talk to him. He's going to write up a press release and give it. And they did. The shipyard attorney, which his name was Joe Flamingo, Charlie talked to him, and he wrote up pretty much a press release and released it to the press just to get them out of the building so that they could conduct business. Then he come in there and he said, the owner of the company said, y'all not going to be able to work out in the field because everybody's going to be asking y'all what's going on. We won't get no work done. And, he was right about that because everybody was wanting to know. Mm. And so they got the press release, and then the sheriff department showed back up, the guys that was with us that night, and he said, I got to thinking about what you said about needing to go to the doctor for bacterial infections and all that. Maybe we need to take y'all to the hospital. And I thought that was a really good idea. So they took us to the Singing River Hospital in Pascagoula. And they did extensive blood work and done all kind of tests. I can't remember what all they done, to be honest with you. And they finally said, well, y'all can go now, and we'll be back with you in a day or two if there's anything wrong. So we left there, and he got us in the car. And he said, now we're going to Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi. Have y'all checked radiation? And I was thinking, well, they must have done some thinking, pretty much. So they did. They carried us to Keesler Air Force Base. They didn't even stop us when we come in the gate to check us. And they carried us all the way to the back, and there was some guys back there with hazmat suits on. They checked us for radiation. I heard one of them say they're all clear. They took their hazmat suits off. They said they want to see y'all in the back. We have a conference or a meeting room back there, and they want to see y'all. So they escorted us down the hall, and we got there, and it was quite a few military officials. It was local officials like mayors and police chiefs and things like that from 3 of the counties down here, because we got 3 counties on the coast that joined us. So they took us in there and asked us what was going on. Well, by this time, I was scared not to talk a little bit. So I talked very little about what was going on, let Charlie do most of the talking. And he sat there and told them. And they said, well, we through with y'all. So they was real nice, They didn't hassle us about anything. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, maybe they seen something because they wouldn't have called us back in to talk to us if they had. And they might have let this slip to the media to make us look like fools.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that it sounds like they knew something about what was going on with all these seemingly important people around.
Yeah. And I was just, that thought just occurred to me. Somebody let them know something. Now, either they found it out on their own, detected it, and they wanted to cover it up. And I think that's a pretty good chance that might have happened. So anyhow, that's always been in the back of my mind. I would like to find some of them still alive and talk to them and ask them. So when we got out of that meeting, they put us in the sheriff's car again, and he's gonna carry us back to L.P. Walker's Son Shipyard. He asked us he said, there's somebody here to see y'all. And who it was, now I didn't know John Allen Hynek from anybody. Yeah. I never heard of the guy. I didn't know who he was or what he did. I didn't even know it was a Project Blue Book back then. But they said John Allen Hynek and Harder from the University of California came down to see y'all. And they came on their own dime, so they flew themselves down as soon as they heard about this. Now, later on, that's something else that got me thinking. When Dr. Hynek showed up himself, I'm just wondering if maybe the Air Force might have sent him there. Project Blue Book was over, but they might have sent him there to check and just see what was going on.
Yeah, I don't think it was ever over. I think it was just pushed to the back. I don't think it ever ended. They just called it something different.
Oh yeah. And, but a lot of this stuff, the more I've learned about all this, the more that, it makes me wonder. I guess it gets in a conspiracy figure in the end, but I don't usually do that. So anyhow, they took us back. Dr. Hynek asked me if, we'd come back the next morning and let him talk to us. So I agreed to do that, but I knew right then my butt was fixing to leave the Mississippi Gulf Coast. I was going to go back home. And we got there the next morning. Dr. Hynek, he interviewed me while Dr. Harder checked out Charlie, and hypnotized him and gave him a physical. And then we just traded places. Hynek interviewed Charlie, and Harder tried to hypnotize me, and he had to bring me out and give us physicals and all that. So when he got through, he said, y'all can go. Well, this is going on the third day now, and I still hadn't talked to none of my family or friends. So I knew I was headed to Laurel. The owner of the shipyard said, I'll pay y'all for y'all to take off a little while. I said, well, you don't have to pay me. Don't have to worry about me taking off because I won't be back. I left. I went back home, and I knew I had to explain everything to my family, my friends. But the thing about it, I never did explain it to them. They never asked me about it. I've never talked about it up until last July in public. The first time my wife of 45 years, the first time I sat down and talked to her was when the book come out. Now she knew what had happened. The whole world knew what happened because it hit every paper and every TV, everywhere. And when we got ready to, it's actually her and Philip's idea that I even did a book because I wasn't going. I still didn't want to talk about all this. I didn't want to write a book. We had a friend that passed away in the neighborhood, or that lived by us. So we went to the wake at the funeral home. Well, I did something there that I've never done before. I've always been real careful because the media would track you down. And if you gave them an interview, which wouldn't do no good to give them one, because they're going to change it and put it like they wanted anyway. And that always made me mad, to have somebody add to something I said or take away from it. So while we was at this wake, I signed a register. And people recognized my name on the register. And somebody come up and said, "Are you the Calvin Parker?" I said, "Well, I guess I am the Calvin Parker. That's my name." And they said, "Well, we've been wondering where you've been." And actually, I've been living right down here, not but 4 or 5 miles from where this happened, all along. We came back, and I moved down here because of the fishing, and bought a little construction company and run it, and I could go out and make a living, but I never used my real name in public and tried to stay away. So on the way home, I told my wife, "Let's get out of here. This is disrespectful to this man and his family." And she said, "Calvin, why don't you write a book?" I said, "Look, I don't have an education. I don't want to write a book. I don't have the education to write one." And she kept on. You know how a wife is once they get started on something. And she said, "Write a book." So to keep her quiet, I told her, "Look, if I find a ghostwriter, maybe I will write a book." But I knew I wasn't going to hunt no ghostwriter. I wasn't going to sit down and tell somebody about it when I hadn't even told my family. So she just kind of dropped it, like women do, and give me the silent treatment. Well, the next day, out of the clear blue, I was down at the boat landing, and Philip Mantle called on a complete different subject than me writing a book. He called about Charlie's book and wanted to ask me some questions about it. And he had got my number through Martin Willis. Martin Willis and I were friends, and he does podcasts here in the States. And every now and then I'd go on his show and just say hi or something. But he had got my phone number through Martin, and Martin called me and asked if it was okay to give it to him. I said, "Sure, I don't know what he wants, but go ahead." So Philip called. He said, "I got some questions I want to ask you about Charlie's book."
Which is,
I said, well,
it's Charles Hickson. It's called UFO Contact at Pascagoula, and it was written with William Mendez, in case anyone's interested out there. Anyway, sorry I interrupted you. Carry on, Calvin.
Oh, that's quite fine. I said, "Well, Philip, I don't know that I can answer any questions. I've never read it. I don't intend to read it. Charlie and I's had a falling out over that book. And, cause I didn't want to go public with none of this anyhow. Charlie came to me, I'm going to give you a certain percentage, and, I didn't want a percentage of it. Of course, anybody in this field knows it's not much money in books. You make more money getting a job than working. So, I didn't care to read the book. And Philip was asking me questions about it. I said, "Be honest, Philip, I've never read the book, don't intend to. I don't know nothing about it." And I said, "I don't talk about this subject because every time I talk about it to somebody, the story gets changed, the media change it. So I don't care nothing about talking about it." He said, "Calvin." I said, "What?" He said, "Make this your legacy. Why don't you write a book? Put it in your words. They can't change it then. It's black and white." And I got to thinking, that makes pretty good sense what he said. But I still wasn't going to write a book. I said, "Well, Philip, let me think about it." And he said, "Well, I'll call you back in a week." And he was good as his word, He called back, and I screening calls, and I didn't answer the phone because I had no intentions of ever writing a book. But let me tell you something about Philip Mantle. When he gets on something, he's like a bloodhound. He ain't going to let up until he finds it.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. So Anyhow, by mistake one day, I accidentally answered the phone again. He said, "Oh, don't hang up. Let's talk." He said, "What have you thought about the book?" I said, "Well, Philip, I don't have much of an education, or really any education hardly. I'm not a writer. Every time I do something, somebody changes it." He said, "Well, I'll help you." He said, "I'll put you on the right path to it and all." I said, "Well, I know, but that's no help. You live in the UK and I'm down here." He said, "Do it. It's your legacy." So anyhow, my wife had been nagging me about it. Philip was now nagging me about it, which I'm glad they did, both of them. And I said, "There's one way that I'll do it." I said, "I do not want this book edited in any way. I don't want a punctuation mark added. I don't want a misspelled word corrected. It's going to be in my language, which is just a little redneck living out here in the country in the United States. And it might be words that somebody don't want to hear, but they don't have to read them." I said, "If we'll agree to that, then we'll do the book." He said, "Let's do it." And he said, "Look," he said, "I know it's probably going to take you 2 or 3 years to do this. We're in no hurry. You get started and you send me what you get at times." He said, "Now, to give you a guideline," he said, "first of all, the first chapter, tell about yourself. Second chapter, tell how you met Charlie. Third chapter, tell about y'all's experience. And then just so on like that." Well, that kind of made a little sense. So I told my wife, I said, told Philip, once I get started on this, I'll be through in a week or so. And told my wife, I said, "I'm going to my bedroom. I'm going to close the door. Don't come in there and tell me somebody's calling me, because I don't want to talk to nobody. Bring me some food in there, a can of beanie weenies or a bologna sandwich every now and then, and something to drink every now and then. And don't let nobody disturb me." Well, 2 weeks later, I walked out of my room, and that's what little bit we had in the book. I sent it to Philip. Of course, Philip's added all the press release and everything, all the important stuff to it. I just got my few little words in there. But he's been good as gold. He done just what he said he was going to do. He edited the book a bit. And I appreciate him for that.
Yeah, this made a nice package of it as well. It's how many pages is it? It's something like just over 400 pages. And it's quite a large format book, and it's packed with images and drawings and news cuttings, all sorts of stuff like that. So it's very good.
Yeah, he documented it in every way he could.
Yeah.
And
he's very thorough, Philip. I have to give him that.
Oh, he is now, and we've become personal friends since then, and I'm really looking forward to getting down to that conference and meeting him and spending some time with him and Christina.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
Oh yeah, I'm a history buff, and y'all have a lot of history in that country, and I can't wait to get down there and kind of go over it.
How long are you coming for? I mean, in actual fact, when this show goes out, it will probably be over, because I'll probably put this out the week of the conference. So
yeah.
How long are you coming for?
I think I don't know where my ticket is. I think I'm going to be there for a week though.
Yeah, at least a week. Yeah, you need at least a week. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm looking forward to the different cultures, although, it's almost like we're from two different worlds in a way. The language barriers are a little different. Well,
the strange thing is your ancestors came from either Europe or England or Scotland or somewhere anyway. So we are all sort of distant relatives, aren't we?
Oh yeah. I think mine came from Scotland.
Yeah, I think a lot do.
And then, like I say, it's going to be a little language barrier. even here in the States, I live in South Mississippi, and from South Mississippi to Louisiana, and then the Yankees, they got their own language.
Yeah, I know.
So
I know that area pretty well. I've travelled quite extensively all through the south and southwest. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. And so we have all that down here. Then you have different foods and different cultures. And I love to look in on the different cultures and the different foods and stuff. Now, where y'all, I don't know really what kind of food y'all have over there, but I'm looking forward to trying it.
You'll enjoy our fish and chips then.
Oh yeah, I love that. There's no doubt about that.
So with your fishing that you did, did you fish to eat, or is it just a hobby?
No, I fish to eat, and I catch so many fish, I clean them and I give them to people that need them.
Ah, right, yeah, good.
And then a lot of times I'll take them up to different schools or nursing homes or somebody in need.
Yeah, that's lovely, yeah.
And, give them a little bit of break.
Sure.
Why be greedy and keep something up? I could fill 100 freezers up if I wanted to.
You must catch a lot of fish.
Oh, I do. I really do. But like I say, I donate most of them.
Yeah.
We fish every now and then here.
Yeah, you sound like a lovely man, actually. You sound like, highly appreciated, I would think, in your community.
Oh, I love the people in my community. Now, there's some of them that I don't like, and they try to stick their nose into my business, and that don't work out too good.
You're always going to get one or two of those, aren't you?
Yeah.
Can we go back to the beings that you saw? I kind of describe them. They're like a mummy type being, like a grey type being. They've got very long arms with like a claw on the end, and their heads, they've got like a pointed ear at the top. And you say they sort of walked along. When you see a picture, they kind of look like a mummy with no real face, no real facial features.
They had skin kind of like, I call an elephant or maybe a manatee. And, real thick looking skin. But I believe that creature there was robotic.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, the female creature, if I'd been in a bar drinking, I would have probably asked her out for a date. So, that tells you she's not really that awful bad looking woman.
Well, it could be. Maybe they've made robots in the image of the actual beings. It's could have been, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Because that was the only kind of normal. I'll say normal. The only sort of normal being that you saw on the ship. The lady.
Just that one.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, if you travel a long ways, then you need somebody to kind of do the work and take care of things. And they probably had these robots on that craft to do all that. And maybe because everybody's got to rest a little bit.
Yeah.
It's so many different cultures, and that's even here on Earth. And, but bottom line, you all got to eat, you all got to sleep, and everybody believes in God in a way. Now, it might be a different one that they believe in than what I do, but, everybody's got something they believe.
And also these beings, needn't being extraterrestrial, they could have been interdimensional beings, couldn't they, of some sort? Because you said they kind of disappeared.
Yeah, and I've thought about that a lot. But the thing that's really bothered me since this has come out is how did Keesler really figure out this happened and have a meeting with us the next day? It was in the news media, but when they rejected you.
Something else that struck me is when you were describing being in the ship, the luminosity in the ship. You didn't see any light bulbs or anything, but the walls being luminous. I've heard that description before in a couple of shows back, actually, with with a guy named Don Mathis who reckons he was taken onto a ship, it's a very similar description of the inside.
Oh, really? I've never heard anybody else say.
Yeah, he described like a luminous. I think actually I believe that the Kinsella twins also, which you'll meet also in at the OLM conference. I think they described a similar thing as well. Yeah, it's all pretty. I think you'll have some interesting conversations, I'm sure.
You know, I don't really, unless I'm at a conference, I go in and listen to some of the people like Colonel Hawk or some of them. Yeah. But, you know, I really don't watch TV that much. But I recently here got into the History Channel and watch that Ancient Alien some. And one reason why, when I was doing that show for the Travel Channel, I got to meet that guy with the messed up hair.
Oh yeah, I know him. Yeah, Giorgio. Yeah.
Yeah, that's who it is. And I just wanted to see how smart he was and listen to see if he was, because I wasn't just real impressed with him when I got to meet him. But he seemed like a down-to-earth person now.
Yeah, I've met him. He seems okay. How intelligent he is, and he's kind of Eric von Daniken's prodigy, isn't he?
He is. And but I don't really listen to all this going on unless, you know, the government gets ready to really admit what they got going. I don't care nothing about hearing.
Oh yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with that. Yeah, when the police were coming out to check you, did they make any sort of a police report? And did they give you a copy of it or anything?
You know, we could probably got a copy of it, but I didn't waste no time to get a copy.
No, I'd just be interested to what they actually said about you, you know.
You know, one of the detectives are still alive, and Karen, with the son Harold, did an interview on him. And it was pretty interesting, the interview. And he said that he believed what was going on because he could see the fear in her eyes and her bodies.
Now, did you also you had something to do with Bud Hopkins? Did you do some sort of regression with him in 1993?
93, yes, sir.
How did that go?
Well, and you know, I didn't realize that he had really hypnotized me until I did the book. And I was telling Philip about it. I said, you know, I had some missing time, and I didn't know where this time went. And I had a friend of mine that said, well, there's a guy giving a conference in West Palm Beach, Florida. And I seen his subject. I live in Tampa, Florida. And I mean, it was in Tampa, Florida where he was. And he's speaking at a conference about missing time. He said, that's what you got. Let's go see him. So we loaded up and went to Florida. And I told this buddy of mine, I said, no, I don't want to go in and see this guy. I don't want to talk to nobody. I said, I don't mind talking to him, but I don't know him. And I said, why don't you go in and tell him I'm out here and I'd like to talk to him. Now, I didn't figure Bud would know me from anybody. He went in there and he told Bud, he said, I got somebody who wants to talk to you, and told him what my name was. Bud said, y'all go to my room. He said, don't even go home. Go to my room. Here's the key, and I'll be there when I get through here. So we went to his room, and sure enough, it didn't take him long. He showed up. And we talked to him, and I told him about my missing time and all. He said, well, would you mind going through a regressed hypnosis session or something like that? I said, no, I don't guess I would. I don't believe you can hypnotize me, but I won't mind going through that. I said, now look, I've seen these side shows in Las Vegas where they hypnotize the whole thing and they make them get up and do stupid stuff. Said, I got a ball bat out there in the car, and if I catch you or find out that I done something stupid or that you put something in my head that's not supposed to be there, I'm going to use this ball bat on you. And the thing about it, though, he took it jokingly, but I was serious. So he hypnotized me. But I had told him that Harder had tried one time before. And he had to bring me out because I was scared. He said, well, I'll fix all that. He put a post-hypnotic suggestion in my head that I wouldn't remember this until it was time to remember it or I could handle it. So I went all them years I didn't realize that he'd even hypnotized me. Well, I got ready to do the book, and I told Philip and I was talking on the phone, and I mentioned Bud Hopkins. Hey, oh, I know Bud. He's a good friend of mine. He's come here at the house and stayed. I said, well, he tried to hypnotize me. He said, well, he keeps good paperwork and all. Let me see if I can find anything. He's dead now. I didn't even know the man.
Yeah, it's a sad loss to ufology.
Yeah, it was. And he said, let me see what I find. Well, Dr. Jacobs had Bud Hopkins work. Well, sure enough, Philip knew where to get a hold of it. Dr. Jacobs says, yeah, I got the original tapes and all. And I'll send it to you with Calvin's permission. So Dr. Jacobs called me, told him, sure, give Philip anything you wanted. And he sent it. Well, little did I know, I figured he was going to get nothing really, because I didn't think I was hypnotized. When I got that in and started kind of briefly reading over the transcripts, I shut it down right then because I didn't want to know what happened until I remembered it. I went out and told my wife, I said, you're not going to believe this, but I was actually hypnotized in 93 with Bud Hopkins. And this was just last July when I figured this out. And I said, look, I want you to go read it or listen to it or read it. And as I remembered, I'm going to tell you about it, but I'm not going to read this. I'm going to remember it on my own. And you see if it's correct. Well, I had a podcast with Linda Moulton Howe just shortly after that. And I didn't think nothing else of it. Well, Linda Howe, she is tough. She does her homework. And she studies everything. You don't get away with nothing with her. And she got on there and she started asking me some questions. It triggered it all at one time. It was just like a movie coming back. And, I could just sit here and see the images just like I remembered everything about it. And I started answering her questions. And then I went to my wife and I started telling her about what had happened. She said, well, that's in there. That was in there. And just to verify it so I wouldn't doubt nothing myself. But come to find out, we kind of went over what happened in 73. I remembered some tag numbers on some cars and seeing different cars. And this is where a lot of these witnesses came in. But anyhow, I did get regressed then, and there's one more little thing that it'd take 2 or 3 hours to sit here and tell you about. So, but, I was hypnotized by him.
Right. Perhaps you have to come back again and tell us, we'll have another 3-hour show for the next time, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk strictly. We can do a whole show just strictly on the hypnosis.
Oh yeah, I'm up for it if you will be, Kelvin. Perhaps in a few.
Sure.
Yeah, great. I shall make a note of that.
Yeah, do that. We'll schedule it and do it.
Yeah, brilliant. I shall definitely make a note of that because I'm very, very interested in that. Because I know Peter Robbins is a good friend who's actually kind of Bud Hopkins. He was a good friend working with him, and I think it became a bit of a prodigy for him. But
yeah. Yeah, this would be something better just to do on a separate show, and so I could cover it.
Yeah,
It's a lot to cover in this.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll definitely make a note of that. Yeah, I'll fix a date with you for that. Maybe sometime in September or something. It'd be brilliant.
Okay, that'll work.
Yeah, excellent. But I don't really know. Have you got anything more you'd like to say on the thing, or? I mean, I know you say there's such a lot in this, and you've been very descriptive of the whole thing, and I think it's an amazing story. I mean, I'll tell you what, there may be people out there listening to this, they might be to this story and be astonished by it. What would you like to say to them?
Well, it's kind of like I told it, like I said earlier, everybody's not going to believe it. The ones that's not probably won't never. The ones that do is going to wholeheartedly believe it. But if they get this book and read it, we have proof in there. We have polygraph tests. We have hypnosis. We have voice stress tests. We have anything, and we have eyewitnesses. And anything but a polygraph is stand up in a court of law. So, if you get this many eyewitnesses that come forward that didn't know each other describing the same thing, and that's the most convincing thing to me. I had a lady that, when she met me, she broke down and cried. And, we've become good friends since then. So, get the book and read it.
Yeah, I'll just
keep an open mind.
I'll just describe. It's called My Story by Calvin Parker. And it's kind of over the top of it. It says Pascagoula, the closest encounter. It's got a foreword by Philip Mantle. It's available on Amazon freely. Also, Calvin will be at the Outer Limits conference, which will probably this show will go out after that anyway. But I shall be putting this book on my Paranormal Dimensions page and give it a good. I'll put some bits and pieces out of it, some pictures and etc. But I'm hoping that you'll pick up some more sales from this. But it's a brilliant book, highly recommended. I've had great pleasure in reading it.
Well, I appreciate it. A lot of people tell me it's like they sitting in the living room with me and me telling my story.
It's astonishing, actually. It really is astonishing. And actually listening to you describe your experience, it makes it even more believable. You didn't stumble over anything. The way you came out with it, it was just as if you were remembered it exactly as you remembered it, basically. And I think it was brilliantly the way you put it over. And you must get fed up with telling the story.
No, I really don't.
Give it another 10 years, Calvin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is, I think, an important subject.
It is.
And even though this happened a long time ago, it's still happening today with other people.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I've had people drive all the way 6 and 7 hour drives to my house just to hunt me down and talk to me. And these people wouldn't be spending their money and their time are just coming to see me and just wanting to talk.
Yeah.
So I take time with them, and I feel like in my own way I'm helping somebody that might need some help. I stayed in a shell for 45 years. I was locked up. I didn't talk to nobody about it, didn't want to talk to nobody about it.
You must have suffered by that mentally yourself. Locking it all up. Yeah.
And it's been a good release for me. And I just want to thank Philip for taking the chains off of me. And he literally has. I mean, he's literally pulled my chains off and set me free, more or less.
Yeah, it shows you how life goes, doesn't it? He was getting in touch with you for a completely different matter and bringing it out of you. I mean, I think that's an amazing story. And
I believe in karma. Now, I tell you, and this came out just at the right amount of time. It came out when I more or less retired and had time to do it. And the government's coming forward with what they do. So, it's all worked out great.
Well, I'd say I'm looking forward to meeting you in a few weeks, and I'll buy you a beer.
Good deal. I'm looking forward to meeting everybody. There's so many people.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone will be clambering to get to you. So that's it. Anyway, Kelvin, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and I've made a good note of that, and we'll get you back on, and we'll do just regression, a show on regression, if you're up for that. It'd be brilliant.
I'll be up. Like I say, I wouldn't mind getting into it today, but
no, that's what I say. I'll be up all night, won't I?
Yeah, it'll be a totally different show altogether.
And my wife will never speak to me again.
And this would kind of get us on it's more like a different subject than anything. And actually, I have never really covered this subject real good.
Excellent. Well, neither have I. So that'll be a first for both of us. It's a subject that I'm interested in, but I know very little about. So I'd really love to do that show. Yeah, definitely.
Great.
Okay.
Well, let's set it up.
Yeah, I will do. Anyway, right, I think we better leave it there then, Kelvin. Thank you very much for coming on, and I hope everyone out there has enjoyed this. I have. I think it's been fascinating. And as Calvin says, he'll come back again in maybe a couple of months, and we'll have another interesting go, and it'll be a 3-hour show next time.
There you go. Looking forward to it. And thank you for having me. And I can't wait to get down there to meet everybody.
Yeah, it's been a great pleasure, Calvin. You take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon. And thank you again for coming on. And
you too, thank you.
Yeah, great. And thank you out there for listening. You've been listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network and Paranormal Dimensions. I'm David Young, and I'll say good night, everybody, and thank you for listening. Thanks again, Calvin. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Colonel Charles Holt is returning to Woodbridge on the 8th of September 2019. It's a Sunday. Tickets are £20 for an all-day UFO event with other great speakers. If you'd like tickets, please get in touch with me. This is my email address. It's davidyoung2qn@yahoo.co.uk. It's going to be a great event, and there's a few tickets left, but they are going quickly, so you need to act fast. Thank you. Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.